Warm thank you for having me, Ben and everyone. It's a pleasure. I'm not going to give a long introduction to what I'm going to do. I'm going to be actually performing with Emma Charles's film, White Mountain, that we're going to screen soon. And I'm going to speak to the themes that Emma has done in the film that relate to technology. So technology, magic, occult, infrastructure, and the verticality of the underground. And particularly, as I will speak, Emma's film is about a particular data center that was originally a Cold War bunker, but was refurbished as a data center in Stockholm. And that's our cue to get into discussions about the Cold War. And I speak in relation to themes in this new book, Cold War Legacies, as well, even if I'm not going to mention it during my talk. So can we have the film, please? What rumbles beneath our feet is the slow remainder of the planet, slowly eroding but so quickly accelerated by human stupidity. The shaky Earth got shakier over the past 70 years or so with the start of the nuclear era, made visible by seismic monitoring, not merely of the tectonic plates but the nuclear weapons tests. Not sure if I'm the only one, but many of these mornings when I wake up and I start reading the news, I've got this weird creeping feeling that our world, our reality, has to be merely a brain in the vat, a simulated collective virtual reality experiment designed by someone in the Cold War period that we are still living. A cruel escalation of one horrible test scenario, of paranoid narratives of complex systems causing or systemic reactions of a collapse, irrational logic and rumors offered as an occult version of geopolitical strategy. Effective as it is, unfortunately, xenophobia and geopolitical nightmares, topped up with visuals and narratives of the usual kind. Stories that we read and hear and live, of surveillance, of torture, of secrets, of intelligence services, special troop operations, cluster bombings, military coups, a 1968 that is not the 1968 of pop music in Britain, but the 1968 that we've been living now as a return of Enoch Powell, The Rivers of Blood. Throw in for good measure also the climate disaster of apocalyptic proportions. So since the end of the previous bigger war in 1945, for decades the nuclear explosion was a regular background for so much of what we called reality. The imaginary of a sudden and complete human-made disaster had been achieved by computational means. The various weapons tests and mathematical calculations that made it possible, the bomb. Spin-offs of the bomb are many. Known as there is information culture, digital culture and its contemporary networks, yet centralized form. Speak of massive computational power, clouds and data centers, simulations running at speeds beyond human capacity. What remains in Emma Charles's film, White Mountain, in these images that alternate between geological surfaces and deep time of the planet to the carefully designed interiors, what remains is staged in the form of the infrastructural afterglow of the Cold War. This mix of a documentary fiction travels to the depth of an old Cold War bunker that was to protect in the case of a nuclear fallout, something that is now redesigned as a data center by the architect Albert Francais Lanord. It's located in Stockholm in Sweden, in the district of Södermalm at Renstiernas gata 35. It rests under 30 meters of granite rock. Above the surface, a traditionally working class neighborhood has turned into the trendy Stockholm we recognize from fashion blogs that run on those machines underneath and others. Is this the secret infrastructure of Stockholm's fashion scene? The place was designed to withstand a hydrogen bomb, an architecture truly worthy of the Cold War period, but also an architecture worthy of our time where depths are not merely for bunkers to house people, merely a handful of engineers and operators in there, but they house other sorts of secrets, not least secrets of data communications. It's a peculiar sort of a legacy of Cold War that turned to shelter internet data circulation. Also, another feature of its infrastructure is reminiscent of a different era of movement. The backup generators are engines from German submarines. After all, data needs energy. Data needs climate control. The temperatures need to be managed, the cooling of the computer systems that themselves operate on planetary scales, across vast distances that seem to reduce to such simple locations on the Google map. And not concreteness of a location for something constantly so ephemeral. And yet, indeed, data is an energy transaction. This seems rather fitting considering the fashionably cool brand of the place that itself has become a marketing item featured in glossy publications. Is the Cold War cool? Sitting inside a data center gives you an odd sort of feeling of space, deep down as if the data was at your fingertips. It's an illusion of transparency, as if it was all there on site. The secrets of transactions in those machines leaked, like the WikiLeaks files once hosted there. Yet these things are in constant traffic as well, requested and read across multiple locations. Any secrecy of the leaks might find such a location for hosting your data. Yet the actual ways in which data transforms our reality is not about one location. It's in data that reality is increasingly created and passed, not unlike the Cold War simulation strategies that created an idea of projected futures or possible scenarios, simulations, computations, predictions, and preemptions. The most technologically advanced places on this planet are the ones underground. Undergrounds that had to be transformed so radically so that they could actually sustain human life. The emergence of the industrial era, the emergence of our modernity, is basically a story of holes. It arrived with a lot of holes dug underneath our feet. Coal mines, oil wells, mineral and rare earth excavations, a puncturing of the earth, infrastructural systems in cities from our underground transport to sewage. Even if the science fiction of the 19th century was so keen to imagine skies filled with wires of communication, airborne vehicles, flying cars, it was actually downwards where true futurism starts to take place. I don't need to tell you that underground was for the arts as well. It was once the underground of the avant-garde, an alternative culture, but imagine an underground arts as rather literally. The proposal starts to make sense as one way to pitch the importance of Emma Charles's film, but also as part of the recent interest in infrastructure, so some of it is featured here today as well. It's this long trail that is of interest as well. Trevor Packlin's work on infrastructures of surveillance agencies, photographs of secret sites and logistics, James Bridle's way of addressing data analytics of surveillance, the various works that engage with the planetary distribution of our electronic waste, the aesthetics of data centers as one sort of an attempt to give a visual tangibility to that which seems to escape our senses. Some engage in sonification of worlds that seem otherwise miraculous and secret as in military secrets, or miraculous as in technology. Christina Kupich's electrical walks sonify our environment's electromagnetic signals into sound. Even Wi-Fi has a sound, even a building security system has a sound. They are like the digital version of listening to ghosts that fascinated our Victorian colleagues 150 years earlier. Listening to a world seems supernatural, even if in this case we're not listening to the dead, but perhaps the undead of sorts. It's very difficult to speak of that which conditions what you can speak about. What is visible, what is audible. One talks of machines of communication because machines talk about you already, but they do that amongst each other rather fine already. If you thought that this reality is complex, the reality of machines, of opening up devices, where you don't find secrets of corporations, you find perhaps a secret of a microcircuitry, a trade secret of sorts. Imagine the complexity of the infrastructures and the networks that have grown around our devices, like a 21st century version of Lovecraft's tentacles. The extended networks that cover the whole of the planet's surface as grids of electricity, transport, logistics, and more, all the particular material forces that enable the seemingly invisible ray to come to your machine or mobile as the message. No wonder we regularly summon the supernatural when speaking of the technologies. No wonder the sorcerer, the magical, the even the occult seems to be part and parcel of this immense complexity. This complexity almost feels like a surface, a texture. It's a planetary texture. This particular embrace of technologies hovers above our heads in planetary orbit, tens of thousands of miles high, as it does underground. If the technologies of machines of communication seemed already complex, imagine an occult that operates as infrastructure. One key summary of the modern Enlightenment, and hence perhaps the period we are still living, Diderot and D'Alembert's encyclopedia from 1765 defined magic as follows, I quote, "It's the occult art or science which teaches you how to do things which are beyond human powers." The occult of doing things beyond human powers. With only a minor variation, we could end up with a definition of engineering. How do you engineer things beyond human powers? What else technology would be than this art or science of doing things that exceed the senses and sensations? An occult infrastructure which operates as if without human intervention, at the distance, and defines pretty much what is possible in the technological sense. Who needs miracles or magic when you have the corporate military sector of engineering? And obviously, with a minor variation, that definition could be turned into a definition of politics, unfortunately. How do you engineer things so that they remain beyond human powers? Who needs the paranoid fiction narratives of Cold War when you have the corporate military sector of engineering? So imagine what follows as one narrative of the residual underground infrastructure. The melting ice accelerated by the climate change starts to unfold a secret military site. The cold north that was to hide nuclear weaponry warms up, and past secrets come out as abandoned yet toxic infrastructures. Thousands of kilometers of passages and tunnels were abandoned, and since the 1960s, diesel fuel, radioactive coolants, toxic pollutants including PCP have been hidden, yet now surfacing because the planet is warming up so quickly. These zombie architectures of the Cold War are prescient reminders of the slow chemical legacy and the slow chemical violence inflicted upon us. It's an old simulated time capsule that was left as our problem. It's also a true story, as the recent news circulated about the American nuclear site Camp Century in Greenland. Camp Century, but it took less than a century. The oddly fitting double aspect of this narrative, the cool north that houses so many of our data centers is warming up, revealing secrets of the previous military eras, stashed away and yet eerily active as waste, temperatures, depths of secrets, and a long trail of infrastructures that are at times abandoned, at times resurfaced, at times redesigned and repurposed for other uses. The underground imaginary persists as one key trope for contemporary miracles that arrive as the magic of technological infrastructures, an occult force that increasingly seems beyond our reach and understanding. It is this sound that you hear rumbling underneath us. Thank you.